You guys know what time it is. New tier lists. We've had a lot of players coming out this last month or so since the All-Star content. A lot of players that are last to the end game. So I think it's time to update the tier list, go through all the players in the game, and suggest the best players in the game to you guys. It's gonna be a longer video, as per usual. So take a seat, get comfortable, get a snack. Let's get into the tier list. It's gonna be a little bit of a longer video. We have a lot to talk about here. I'm gonna go as quick as I can for you guys, so. All right, so just a couple things to point out before we get into it. First of all, I do play this game all the time, but I can't test every card. It's just kind of how it is, unfortunately. I'm going to talk about how I feel about cards based on my previous use with them, and overall just go through certain things that I've heard from the community and other people who have used the cards. These are my opinions. Please don't spear tackle me and punch me in the face for them, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's all just opinionated. But I want to provide good information to help you guys in the right direction, to help you choose who you should be using or who you want to try first. And finally, I can't talk about every card. We'd be here for like 2 hours if I talked about every single card, and nobody wants to listen to me talk that much, not even me. So I'm going to really try to talk through cards as quickly and the newer content as much as possible. If you missed out on a card and you want to see how I feel, I probably talked about them in the previous video. Check out the rest of them up here. And finally, I do suggest using the S tier players the most. These players will likely last in your lineup the most. If you should be pushing to get them. They're just suggestions. You could use you could use whoever you want. But if you do well with players, always use them over players you suck with. So in terms of our catchers, don't use D tier. Those guards are cursed. I mean, they're maybe not the worst, but I wouldn't suggest using them. C tier you can kind of get away with using, but at this point there's so many better catchers, probably not the best other than starting off. B tier are good catchers that you may have used before in the game. They're definitely so solid, but they're just better at this point. If you took like a couple month break, you can still get away with using them if you have them. But in terms of other players we've talked about before, our all-star content with Realmuto, Salvi, Zunino, and Carlos Santana, who have been in the game for a bit, definitely still solid catchers, these bunch. Not as good as the S tier though. Catcher's such a slim position. These cards are better, but just not as good as the best and the best. So in terms of newer players added, 95 Posada's got nice, well-rounded hitting attributes. I love his swing. There's a little lower contact than the 90 overall. It's kind of unfortunate. But overall, he plays nice. He's got gold defense. Very well-rounded catcher. If you are looking for a nice switch hitter option, I would suggest him. So he fits right into the A tier, but they're significantly better. Some guys have been in the game for a bit, guys like Schwarber, Salvi, and Realmuto. I suggest platooning Schwarber and Salvi. Start Schwarber in your lineup if you face a lefty, then pinch hit and then put in Salvi, or keep Schwarber in lefty-lefty, and maybe in a later scenario when you do face a lefty, pinch hit him in like the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. And Realmuto is a pretty well-rounded catcher with better arm strength. Is better if you like that defensive type guy back there. But new Mike Piazza came out. This card's got really good hitting attributes, probably some of the best at catcher you'll see all year. Defense isn't the worst too at 76, but definitely isn't really the best by all means. Key thing with Piazza is his swing is a little longer. Some people have issues timing up his swing well. It's very viable. It's just kind of what happens with him. But if you can time up his swing and do some damage to him, he can be really good. Even as a secondary at first, if you're looking for that good first base option. So, but probably is worth a try. Keep in mind you may have issues with his swing. So he's a slot in the S tier. I don't know if he's a class above Schwarber and Salvi just because of his swing. I really love the two swings on Schwarber and Salvador Perez. So I think they're better. But overall, Piazza's a great option if you want to give him a go. He'll be pretty comparable to doing Schwarber and Salvi because of the offensive side of things. Onto a first baseman now. I want power. I want big power at first base. A lot of players I put down low because I don't like their lack of power, or they only have power versus one side. So a lot of these first basemen, the bottom ones, are really lacking power. And the D tier guys are definitely better starter options if you're looking for them. Then our C and B tier are players that you may have used before in the game. Your B and C tier are definitely a little better options, especially your B tier. Guys like Mancini, Olsen have really nice power. Tommy is great as well. That Konerko is a nice beginner option that they added. These guys are pretty good starter first baseman, but I just think the A and S tier guys are way better bats, especially versus both sides. First of all, we got the new Joey Vado. Good hitting attributes versus righties, solid versus lefties, but not the best. And definitely is a good fielder with gold defense. The 25 speed is really low, and I wasn't hitting for power with him. He's got a big leg kick, which I feel like is a distraction. So I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I don't think he's as good as the couple S tiers, but he's definitely in that class with guys like Matt Olson, who are maybe the better defensive lefty first base options. I just like that he has higher contact than Olson, so I put him a class above. But honestly, Matt Olson's swing may play better. Alonso and Field are the same card, basically, but one's a lefty, one's a righty. I've been getting a feel of Prince's swing recently, and I've been loving him. But the S tier first baseman, I definitely think are a step above. Vlad and Poppy, they have to be the S tier first baseman. I think those would be cards you could see in lineups all year, especially that Vlad absolutely mashes. A lot of people don't use Ortiz as much, but it doesn't make him worse. I think it's just that he's been in lineups for a while, so people want to use other first basemen at this point. But I think that Poppy and Vlad are the best two. Really good power, the best hitting first baseman for sure, especially versus both sides. I find that I could do well versus righties and lefties with those two. Overall, the A and S tier are really good options to use at first. Now our second baseman, you'll see it's a lot less deep. There are a lot less second basemen to talk about. Again, D tier, don't use them. C tier, good starter guys. Not the best by all means though. Our B tier, definitely some good second baseman. Again, you get some really easy through tops now like Miller, Jed Lowry, and Dylan Moore. Definitely solid options for second base. They also have some nice positional versatility. If you're just playing the game for the first time, you could pick them up. Brandon Lau actually is a pretty nasty bat, but he's got some weird attributes, I feel like, and it's tougher to hit lefty-lefty with him, in my opinion, but could be a nice second base option to start off. We had the DJ Lamechu come out in the new event, the Field of Dreams event. Card actually is nice. Gold defense, mashes lefties, actually solid versus righties. I usually do solid with his swing, but I found that some people used to struggle with his swing, so that might be something worth noting. So I'm going to put him in the A tier. I don't think he's as good as our S tier second baseman because the best are really good. And he's definitely not up to that level. Cronenworth and Albies are kind of split heavy. Semien is a little weak on the hitting attributes in comparison to the S tier guys. And Sandberg, not the best swing. But we have the new Joe Morgan. He mashes righties. Probably isn't bad versus lefties too. He's got 92 fielding, really good speed. Really good option at this point in the game because he crushes righties. And there are a lot of good righty starters in the game. So I'm going to put him in the S tier, along with Mookie Betts, who is definitely the best second baseman. He has a primary right, but you have to put him in this list because he is going to be used probably mostly as a second baseman. Great power, great contact, great defense. Exactly who you want out of Mookie. I think his swing is really good too. I think his swing is better than Alfonso Soriano's. He probably plays a lot better than him. Mookie is a guy you should be shooting for at second base for the long run if you're not going to use him in the outfield. But Jackie and Soriano are still really good. Joe Morgan's very good. You may want to consider platooning Joe Morgan with someone who crushes lefties like LeMahieu or that Ozzy Albies. But overall, those are your second basemen. Now our shortstops. Again, E tier, don't use them. D tier, not good at all though. C tier, you know, starter shortstops you can do something with. Again, they're not the worst, but very not usable at this point in the game. B tier shortstops, I think these are the starter shortstop you should go for. Some of them are cheap buys on the market, free to earn in monthly award programs. But these cards usually display one sort of significant weakness. Story is low contact versus righties. Quazon doesn't have much power. Michael Young doesn't have much power and or speed really. Farmer, not much power versus righties. Very good hitting attributes otherwise. Also a little lower on speed. Goodrum is good defensively, but just the hitting attributes don't keep up nowadays. Crawford is good except for the lefties and again lower on speed. And Wander Franco is just like a little underwhelming hitting attribute wise. A tier guys though are definitely a class above. Lower speed guys, I want big power with a shortstop. And Swanson here actually doesn't have too low of speed, but is a nice power option with 108 and 101. His swing usually plays well as well. This is like a really good starter shortstop. So I'm gonna throw him in A tier. A tier guys are a mixed bag. You get some guys with speed like Tatis, but a lot of well-rounded guys like Correa, Banks, Swanson, Mauricio, Groshans, Xander, and Story. All are pretty well-rounded, but I feel like they're just a little weak at something usually. It's different for each card, but they're definitely viable shortstop options still. And one of these guys you will likely do well with, and sometimes they'll play up to that S tier type level that we're going to talk about with guys like Story, Xander, or maybe even guys like Correa and Swanson. Like Tatis, he's just weak versus lefties in contact. But other than that, he's got the speed. If you like the speed guys, he may be the guy you go for. So S tier, we gotta talk about the new Francisco Lindor, SIG series card. Very well-rounded hitting attributes. He's got a nice swing, crushes righties, very good versus lefties still. He's got the higher contact, but a little lower power. 74 speed is pretty solid, and he's got 97 fielding. Very nasty defense, very nice shortstop option if you're looking for him. This may be a little bit more of a grind to earn because he's a World Series reward. And he's definitely in the S tier. He's definitely with Wander Franco as like that well-rounded shortstop with solid speed, defense. Wander is a little worse on power, but I think a little higher on contact. I haven't done the best with his 99 though, which is worth noting. But he's a solid shortstop option too. And yes, I have Trey Turner as S tier. That bat is so good. I think he's the best hitting shortstop of the bunch. His defense sucks. It's a slight issue, but I'm willing to take that sacrifice to get his bat in my lineup every game. Now to our third baseman. Again, I want the power like first base, but you could also get good defense here. And ideally, well-rounded big power bats are who I want here. In terms of newer cards that are in these E, D, and C tiers, Austin Reilly, the monthly award card, is a little weak versus lefties. He's got a solid swing though. I don't think it keeps up with B, A, and S. I think that third base is kind of a deep position, and there are a good amount of nasty bats at this point. In terms of underrated third baseman, I like this Brooks Robinson a bit. I've been using him these last few days, and his swing has been playing solid. He actually has pretty serviceable power versus righties. He's a contact type boy. If you like Clemente, if you like Jackie Robinson, you may like Brooks Robinson, but he also has diamond fielding. He just doesn't have speed. But overall, this is a nice underrated third baseman to start off with if you did your Field of Dreams program. So I'm going to put him in the B tier. Again, I want power at third. That's why he's a little bit of a class below. He's pretty comparable with the Manny Machado. That Manny Machado has really good splits versus righties, not really good versus lefties though. And Gloss is down here only because of his swing. A lot of people didn't really like his swing from what I've seen. He's not really used much from what I see now. Seager, Longo, Turner are very nice, well-rounded first base. I mean, they're very well-rounded third basemen. Pablo, Devers, and J-Ram are kind of weak on one side in comparison to the other. So I have them there though because they are switch hitters. Or Devers is actually pretty solid versus lefties too with his swing, I would say. So next we have 97 Chris Bryant, who I honestly could put in S. His swing is pretty nice. I like his swing from what I've used him so far. Really good, well-rounded third baseman that I would suggest going for. One thing is worth noting. If you get him super factored, all above 100 hitting attributes, diamond fielding at third, really nice. I would recommend giving him a try. He's probably the go-to budget third baseman for me that I would recommend. Only like 10K on the market right now. So pick him up right now if you haven't given him a go. I would recommend him. Mike Schmidt could play like an S tier third baseman. He could play probably just as good as Vlad or Chipper Jones or many of the power hitting guys. Except his swing is an issue for many. He's got a longer type swing like Soriano. And I've heard that this card still has it in comparison to years past. So I feel like I've got to put him a class below them. But he has the potential to be that good. But that chances of that happening are kind of slim. It's almost a longer swing than a guy like Piazza. So I'm going to leave him in the A tier. Escobar and Castellanos are also very good third base options. Castellanos is a bigger bat, but worse defensively. Escobar is a nice switch hitter bat if you're looking for someone like Chipper before getting Chipper. And then our best third baseman, I think, are still personally just Chipper and Vlad. I think that you could either play Vlad at first, or if you have a first baseman you've been really liking, move Vlad to third, move Chipper to short or the outfield, or maybe you don't even have Chipper yet. Really good to have that versatility with him. And I had to put him in the third base list because I think as the year moves on, we start getting a lot of really good first basemen. It'd be smart to move Vlad to third. Now our outfield, again, there's so many players. I recommend taking a quick look through this screen here, see if there's anyone that you recognize that you want to hear your opinion of, but not much new players in these lower tiers. It's that kind of thing where, again, there's so many outfielders. There's only a few that are really, really good. A lot of these cards, especially in the D tier, are solid starter guys. Harrison Bader, the new monthly award card, they kind of killed this card. He's solid versus righties, really not good versus lefties. Like, that's way too low at this point in the game for me to suggest using. The defense and speed is nice, but you may as well use that $95 and over this card because he's more well-rounded. So Bader's going to top off the C tier, but the C tier does have a lot of good, really good hitter outfielder options if you want to put that good bat in your outfielder on the bench, or just guys who used to be pretty solid and very usable at one point, just kind of fallen a little bit. Our B tier guys are players that were, again, really good top options for a while, or they took one step down. You could throw them on your bench, or you could get some good use out of guys like Lou Brock. Like, that Lou Brock is that good contact option, and he has bunting for all you cursed people out there who like to bunt. And that monthly award AJ Pollock, I think, is very well-rounded outfield option. Now to our S tier and A tier. 99 Vlad, we got to talk about him. Best hitting attributes you'll probably see of an outfielder in a little while. With the not bad defense, like silver 70 fielding isn't the worst. If you have this card, I would keep him in his primary right field. Keep him with that silver defense if possible. If you have a better fielding right fielder, you may just want to move Vlad to left end, but he's gonna have bronze. You're gonna want to get him super factored so you get that silver defense again, I would say. But 81 speed will make up for some of the lackluster defense you'll have. You have him in the lineup for the really good bat, and he should hit for that power to really make up for it. Harper is almost like what Vlad could be, except he's a little weaker versus lefties, a little slower. He does have a little better defense though. So this Harper actually could be nice if you're looking for that lefty option for the outfield, but you may want to keep in mind he's a little weaker versus lefties. So we're going to put them in the A tier. My S tier is very slim right now because I think they're going to be the most used, and it's even bumped out guys like Mike Trout. I would love Live Series Mike Trout. He's so good. I just feel like the hitting attributes on guys in the game at this point are significantly better than him. He's starting to get outclassed. I recommend using him if you have a chance to, but keep in mind the splits versus lefties are a little weaker. He does get benefit with quirks and inside edge, which does really help him. He's just not as good as the S tier guys, in my opinion. First of all, Roberto Clemente, we got to talk about this card. A lot of people, I feel like, felt like that power was a little low, and they just instantly discounted this card because he didn't have over 100 power, which is moderately fair. A lot of the best outfielders in the game, including guys like Mookie, have power like that. But keep in mind, he's got 125 contact. I enjoy his swing a lot. The defense is really, really good. It'll be some of the best defense in right you'll see. And personally, I think the power plays well still. You know, if you use Jackie Robinson, you realize you could still hit for power with him. But he's just not one of those dudes like Vlad or someone that'll likely hit early home runs just because of the high power he has. You got to really piece it. But overall, I think this card is honestly underrated. I think he will have some really long-term use for that defense. Mookie Betts, again, we got to talk about him. This is probably the best outfielder in the game right now. High contact, great power, diamond fielding. I mean, he'll keep up with the end game outfield options, but he's going to have that better versatility of being a second baseman later in the game. You could use him now as second baseman, or you can keep him in your outfield, get that defense. So, my S tier outfielders. Yes, I have Acuna in the S tier. I know his contact versus righties is a little bit lower, but his power plays and his swing plays really well. I think that's going to keep him in lineups for a while, especially if you're not a Hall of Fame and legend. Acuna's swing should really play. I think he's a step above a lot in the A tier. A tier guys are still really good, but a lot of times they're lacking either defense, hitting attributes versus one side of the plate, or maybe just their swings aren't as good as the players in the S tier. But overall, A and S are going to be what you're filling your outfielders with, and I think they're all very solid options for you to go to. Starting pitcher, just like outfield, you have so many guys to talk about. Take a look through. Newer players that came out though. Walker Buehler, pretty solid monthly award pitcher. I don't really know how good he'll be in my opinion. I feel like the pitch mix isn't going to be that great. I think he'll probably be a C, maybe B tier pitcher at best. El Duque, Orlando Hernandez, that's in the ranked seasons pennant race award pack, actually could be a little better than expected. He's got very slow pitches, and with pinpoint, he might be able to dot up those curveballs in a Valenzuela type thing, but he doesn't have all the breaking balls like Valenzuela, so it's not really the same. And then that Frankie Montas in that monthly award program, not the best. Onto our B tier. We have a lot of guys like Elias Series, DeGrom, Valenzuela, who are definitely solid pitchers at the early part of the game. At this point, per 9 stuff, we're starting to move them down a little bit, but still very solid, like 4 or 5 starter options. I think that Vado Blue, Chrissy Mathewson, very meh 99s based on their pitch mix. I've heard not great things, but overall, you could put them in your rotation still. They're not going to keep up with the best pitchers in the game in A and S tier. Speaking of A tier pitchers, Lefty Grove. This card looks like he could be an S tier type pitcher that stays in lineups all year. I'm being a little hesitant on him though. He's got lower break on his pitches, which I feel good hitters will eventually get a feel of. Does have outlier on a fastball, which is a major plus, but you got to remember that outlier is not going to be the biggest impact everywhere. But he's FV solid. Very nice lefty arm for your rotation if you're looking for one. So I'm going to put him in the A tier. Some people are going to hate me. I have Edward Cabrera not in S tier. Edward's really good, but I feel the outlier sinker isn't going to be as effective with the sinker nerf. In case you missed it, if you throw sinkers, curveballs, and pitches like that high in the zone now, they're not going to have as much vertical movement, so they're not going to be as effective. It can be somewhat effective, but for a guy like Edward Cabrera, who is basically relying on the outlier sinker, I think he kind of takes a little bit of a step down because of that, but he's still a top tier pitcher. It doesn't mean you can't use him. It just means that I think the other 99 pitchers in the game with better attributes are going to be better than this card at this point, in my opinion at least. In terms of our S tier starters, let's talk about Nolan Ryan. Yes, I think he's S tier. High control. He's basically got a Jacob deGrom fastball. He's got a sinker to mix in as well. He doesn't have a slider or a cutter or anything like that, which kind of makes his card a little bit of a step down. But the per 9s, especially hits and Ks per 9, are really good. Now, Hall of Fame and legend, he could really be a thorn in people's side, kind of the same manner like Edward Cabrera. However, not the best pitch mix, and I got a good feeling good hitters will crush him, so he won't be in the S tier for the longest. Verlander here is like Nolan Ryan, but he has a slider, and just replaced the sinker with a cutter. I haven't tested this card. I haven't seen anyone use him. He could be that good, but I don't really know. I haven't tested him, but the outlier is big on this card. Basically, Nolan Ryan with a slider and cutter could be really nasty. And then 99 Felix Hernandez. I've heard mixed things already. I've heard some people not love him, but I feel like if you gotta put him in this S tier, he's got the ideal pitch mix. He's gonna remind you of Corey Kluber last year. He's got basically the same pitch mix. He's got a high hits per 9. Very good stacked per 9s on this card, and stamina. Stamina is really nice. Keep in mind, doesn't have much velocity, so you're gonna really want to throw pitches out of the zone, just outside on the corners. If you mislocate anything, it's probably gonna get crushed because of the velocity. But some people were saying the slurve wasn't really great at 85 miles an hour. I kind of liked it, kind of caught up on you. People expected to be slower, but when you're at the plate, it kind of catches up on you a bit. So I liked it when I was using it. So I'm going to put those guys in the S tier along with Al Leiter, who I think is the best lefty in the game, and then Jacob deGrom, who I think is probably the go-to starter for many. But just because the outlier and the great solid pitch mix and Really good per nines that card. But honestly, A and S tier are pretty close to each other. I don't think these pitchers are significantly better than the A tier. I just feel like that these would be pitchers you see used for longer just because they're 99 overalls. Now our relievers. I know we're on the tail end of it here. We're in the home stretch. Again, relievers are like starters where you got to find a preference for you. I almost forgot to mention this with the starters. Just because you don't do that great with a starter doesn't mean that they're bad, and same with relievers. You want to try these players, but almost like hitters, you may not do well. You may have a pitcher that you do better with based on their pitch mix and the type of pitches they have. So you got to find what works the best for you. This is just where I suggest going off the rip and choosing your rotation when you're building your team. And also, just because you hit a pitcher doesn't mean they're bad. A lot of times you could be a better hitter than you expect. You just may absolutely crush a certain pitcher, and there may be those pitchers that you don't personally hit well at all. It's just kind of a part of the game. So you got to find out what you pitch the best with. And overall, these are the pitchers I see the most in rotations, or where I picture seeing being used the longest. So with our relievers, these D and C tier guys are probably guys you want to give options to when first starting, but they're really outclassed at this point. We have so many relievers and easily attainable ones like 92 Graven, who's got sinker, cutter, fastball, changeup, slider, really good pitch mix. The velos aren't the most insane. They are all very close in speed, but could be a nice starter bullpen guy. But chances I pitch well at this card. He's more of like a 1 inning couple batter guy. You don't keep him in too long because good hitters will start to read that he only has a fastball and slurve and really crush him. But it could be a very effective couple out reliever. So we're going to put him in the A tier. Definitely solid relievers to put in your pen. You could find some mix of them to fill out your bullpen with. And I would target going for those dudes at this point in the game. Some guys may pitch as well as some of the S tier guys for you, like say Rob Dibble. But I just feel like they're a little bit of a step down from those S tier pitchers. Speaking of our S tier guys, we got Kenley Jansen, came out in the BR program. Really good reliever for many. He's got higher speed than, say, Mariano Rivera. So that stuff is going to hit hard. It's going to be tough to catch up on Hall of Fame and Legend. My only downside with this card is that his pitch mixes are close in speed. So I don't think he's going to be as good as some people make him out to be. But some people could pitch really well with him and are really good. Me, however, I suck with pitching with this card usually, so it's usually an issue for me. I like to have the change of speed with guys like Mariano, where a lot of speeds are a little different. Kenley just has 2 speeds he throws at, so it's tough to do that. But they're all in the S tier for me. Some people don't do as well with the one over the other. Again, you got to find what you do the best with. And yeah, that's all. Those are tier lists. Obviously, these are my opinions. Don't hurt me. It's fun talking about players, give my opinions, especially in this one. I really focused on the newer players that came out, and I really wanted to emphasize that the S tier at this point in the game, those are players that you'll likely see used all year in comparison to a lot of the A tier guys who you will likely see used all year too. But in terms of like God squads, you're going to want to push for those S tier guys over those A tiers. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, make sure you hit that like button if you sat all the way through. Did I get anything wrong? Do you disagree? What pitchers and hitters do you guys do well with? Let me know in the comments section. I'd love to hear your opinions. And I think what I'll do, I'm not 100% sure yet by the time I'm editing this video. I'm deciding on if I'm going to put a spreadsheet together with all the A and S tier players at each position, so you can keep up with my opinions on the players you want to give a go. If I do, I'll put it in the description of this video. It may not be there when it's first uploaded, but eventually it will be if I happen to make it. Because so I want to keep it all updated so you have a good resource on who you should be using. This is like a single source thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be back in another tier list again, probably a month from now, whenever we get Team Affinity 4, whenever that drops, or maybe a slew of end of the season players. We'll have to see how it goes.